Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Sabella, and I'm a talking person. Today, I am joined with the lovely Paige Ray, a photographer, videographer, and web designer in LA. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Carly. I'm so excited today.
We wanted to get into a few different things today. I feel like obviously we're both creatives. We could talk about that for a bit, but you're also one of the few people I've met on Threads who is still masking, wearing a respirator, and protecting yourself from COVID-19 and other respiratory viruses. So I would love to talk about that, and especially that kind of combined with being in an artistic field. I know like both of us have instances where we have to be on set or where we're working with people in person. I work remotely, but I know you do a lot more in person. So I would love to get into that first.
Totally. I This is big for me for so many reasons. Professionally, the reason I like to mask on set is because it, if I don't want to show up to set sick, obviously, and I don't want to get anybody else sick. But if I get sick on set and then I have another shoot a week from now,
Mhm.
if I have to move that shoot, like contractually, if I have to cost my client money because we have to cancel the shoot, reschedule the studio, reschedule the hair and makeup artist, reschedule the models, all of that costs money. Like
Yeah.
I can't afford to not be showing up to work, and my clients can't afford for me to be pushing these photo shoots because I got sick at work. And obviously no system is perfect. I don't want it to seem like I'm talking about getting any kind of sick even with COVID as some sort of like moral or professional failure. That's not at all what I mean. But the I feel like it's really part of like a contractual responsibility to be able to show up without having to, like,
Yeah.
somebody worrying that their shoot's going to get moved, something is going to change dramatically. Like, that's a stressor, and I if I can avoid that, I will. So I still
Yeah.
mask on set. It feels I understand that some people have sensory issues with it. For me, it doesn't. I forget about it after a while, unless somebody gives me a funny look. But I haven't really had clients give me funny looks. But in Los Angeles, I just feel like people just care less if you're masking. There are still people
Yeah.
masking here, but it's obviously not as much as it used to be. But I feel like people just, kind of are like, do you, whatever, like, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And I think it's such a valid reason. I feel like a lot of times, at least my husband and I, like we're having to justify our reason for masking. If somebody gives me a weird look, I'm always inclined to be like, oh, I have a parent with long COVID. Like I don't want to get sick myself. And I feel like there's this pressure. Like a lot of people will say, oh, the pandemic's over. You don't have to be masking. And we always feel this reason, those of us who are still masking, to like justify and give a reason. But and I mean, I love your reason that like, hey, I just don't want to have to miss work. I don't want to have to cost other people money or inconvenience others because I'm sick. And like we should not need a reason. And yeah,
Agree.
that's like one of my pet peeves. Like we've had family and friends who, we don't see anymore because they don't mask and they make us feel bad for masking. We've had a lot of situations like that, and I'm glad that it's not as much a thing in LA, but I feel like everywhere you go, like someone gives you a look and you feel that like, this is why I'm wearing it. And it's like, you can just not want to get sick. Being
Yeah,
sick
exactly.
sucks.
Like the long term like health risks of COVID scare.
Yeah.
Can I swear? They
Yeah. You can swear.
Yeah,
I love how you were like, can I swear? And then it was just to say shit.
just say shit. I don't really say anything. But it scares the shit out of me. I mean, some of the stuff I've seen, some of the health things that I've seen crop up for people like friends, of family acquaintances that come up within a month or two of having a COVID infection.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that sounds horrific. Like, oh my gosh. And I think part of I think a major disconnect is our public messaging on health failed us so
Oh,
dramatically. Most
absolutely.
people
Yeah.
have no clue about what the long-term health risks of a COVID infection, even a mild infection, can be. Most people just don't know. Like, to me, this is a failing of public health messaging.
Yeah. And
Because I like
I blame both administrations for that, by the way. I
absolutely,
think that
yeah.
it was
Mhm,
the handling at the start of the pandemic was catastrophic
mhm,
with the Trump administration. But then I have to say, I mean, I voted for the Biden administration and we can still hold the people we vote for accountable. And they also bungled their COVID response.
mhm.
A
Major.
lot of people are like, I remember they got rid of the COVID tracking. People were like, oh, the government's not tracking anymore. And it's like, that doesn't mean it's not still spreading. They don't just turn off the virus.
Exactly. Like if you don't test, it doesn't mean it's not a COVID infection. It means you didn't test
Mm-hmm.
to find out if it's a COVID
Yep.
infection. And I just honestly, this is something that is just it becomes so on my mind so frequently because I feel like we as a society are playing with fire and we just don't realize it. Nobody who was supposed to put the message in front of us really did it effectively. And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are walking around not understanding the risk that they're taking. But also, and this is something I ran by my therapist because I was like, am I
Sure.
understanding something like this correctly? And she said, you know what? Yes, I actually think I understand why you're thinking of it that way. But when the pandemic started, that was traumatic for all of
Yeah.
us. It was difficult for so many reasons. And we never we never are taught, at least in this society, how to deal with grief, how to deal with that kind of trauma. And so we don't. I think the reason most people wanted to get quote unquote back to normal is because they wanted to stop being in the trauma of a pandemic. And unfortunately that's
Mhm.
not really how it works. But I also think a part of it is like everybody's going through the grief process and a lot of people are stuck in the denial phase. A lot of people are stuck in the
Yeah.
anger phase, which is why they get angry if they see you wearing a mask. Like they don't want to remember what's going on, kind of thing. So I think there are a million things at play, but I always try to come back to like everyone's just doing their best and making the best decision in front of them. But for me, that means wearing a mask on set, protecting my clients, protecting myself, protecting
Yeah.
my family and loved ones, kind of thing.
That's such a good point. And I think in that you bring up an interesting point that like a lot of people have not I think the pandemic was difficult for a few reasons, and I think it was difficult for people who had not faced a lot of adversity in their lives yet. I think the line I heard a lot from people was they wanted to go back to normal and like they miss dining out in restaurants again. And I thought like you guys couldn't go 6 weeks without, going out. And I think that um I remember, I forget what the exact number was, but I remember Dr. Fauci in the beginning of the pandemic when they were doing those daily briefings was like, if we all stayed inside for, I forget if it was like 8 weeks, 3 months, but it was some time frame. And it was like if everybody
Mm-hmm.
took our advice, if everybody followed our instruction exactly, we could eradicate this.
Yeah.
And it was not enough for people. It was not enough to ask people to care for their neighbor. And I think that's really telling. I mean, at least the thing you bring up in therapy is interesting to me because a lot of people in our life who are not masking are not
Yeah.
people who are familiar with therapy in the last the last 5 years. And I
Right.
think that's interesting.
Right. Like I spent so much time in my mind on this because so much doesn't like square up for me. Like the people that I know and love and respect who were so willing to want to, go back to normal, take the mask off, not worry about it. And they're smart people, they are caring
Oh yeah.
people, they're people that do amazing things, they're loving people, they're good friends. And
Yeah.
so like I I'm trying to reconcile like what are we how did we get here? What are we doing? Like let's take the idea of personal responsibility off the table because that's when I think we get into a blame game. And I really do think it starts with public health messaging and like a million other factors. I think a lot of people want to not think about it because we are in such a poor state of healthcare in our country, and it's been that way for a long time. So the thought of adding something else, oh my goodness, that feels overwhelming. Like I think it's a million different factors. So I want to be as like caring and considerate about the whole 360 of it as possible.
Yeah, it just, yeah, it just boggles my mind the like mental gymnastics
Yeah.
that people do to kind of justify them getting back to normal. I'll bring up a lot of times on threads like masking is an accessibility accommodation. It always has been. It was an accessibility accommodation in cancer wings and hospitals. Everybody was masking up there before the pandemic. People masked in hospitals. You mask in operation rooms. It was standard practice there. It wasn't a new thing.
I do have multiple people in my life who are in chemo battling cancer, and I am always shocked when I see like healthcare workers
Yeah,
around them not masking.
yeah,
And it just blows my mind. I do think though, and everything I say from a place of like I don't have children, and so I think for parents, I think we left. I think all of society really just like abandoned parents in this whole thing.
yeah.
Like, did not give parents good options, did not upgrade ventilation at schools, did not,
Oh my gosh,
you know,
yeah,
like so many opportunities that we had that we didn't take, and parents just got the brunt of it. I mean, I fully understand looking at what parents have to deal with. Like, they have to get their kids through school. They are dealing with a myriad other issues. They've got 5 schedules in front of them, and it's just so like I think that, you know, like we really failed parents in the pandemic and at large. I think most parents kind of got to a moment where they were like, I've got to do something because I've got kids and they've got to get to school
yeah.
and we've got to be able to do this. So like, I feel for all of those like paths that people have to think about. Um, and so that's where I think the conversation gets so sticky. Like, there are a million different paths here. And I think I feel really fortunate that I'm just in a position where I can mask all the time. And I feel like not everybody gets to be in that space.
That's the thing. And yeah, the parents were put in such a difficult position. I empathize with that too. And it got to a point too where, I mean, you can't control what a 5 year old does once they get to daycare. Who knows if your kid was like pulling down their mask or seeing other kids do it. And
Yeah.
it's at a point now where no kid is masking in schools. I've heard of some that like ask kids to mask if they're sick, but it's like a petri dish at schools, and like they're bringing home illnesses all the time. And I think we failed children too. There was a lot of misinformation at the beginning of the pandemic that like kids of a certain age couldn't get it. And we're finding out now that like it does not discriminate the second you pop out of the womb. And even before then, we're seeing complications in pregnancies in women who have gotten, in women and people who are pregnant, have gotten COVID. We're seeing complications now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
so yeah,
terrifying.
there was a lot of misinformation at the beginning. I remember the early days of the pandemic. I was in college when it started. I got sent home. I remember at the beginning, yeah, I had started my second semester,
Mm.
um, and we got sent home. I remember people were like telling others to Lysol your groceries off. There was
Oh, yeah.
people were like,
I remember
people
that.
had no idea. Yeah, there was. I remember. I think it was Amy Klobuchar who was talking about it, but there was just tons of misinformation that I remember the government knew more than what they had told people at the time. I think there was a big discrepancy, and a failure in public health communication at the start because people were worried about stuff contaminating their groceries. People were starting to order delivery, and like it was spreading through the air. Nobody, I mean, obviously wash your hands, but it's a
Yeah.
respiratory illness spread through the air. You didn't have to worry about lysoling your groceries.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I just like still I'm seeing people I post about COVID and people will comment on my post saying, you don't need to mask, wash your hands. And I'm just like, I just want to shake people. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, wash your hands and also mask. There are a plethora of viruses out there spread in different ways, but if you're preventing a respiratory disease, wear a mask.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And and I do feel fortunate that I've like had that equipment in front of me, and I'm able to like take precautions.
Mm.
And I, knock wood, haven't gotten sick with anything. All of the stuff that's going around, like it's crazy. Like, we're having a flu season in the middle of a summer. Everybody wants to talk about a summer cold, which
Now
I
that's the thing.
love
See,
it,
now
but
that's the thing. You bring up summer flu. I want to bring that up because we did not get summer flus before the pandemic. And I
thank
had
you.
a post, I got a lot of nasty comments on a post I did the other day on Threads that was like, guys, it's not summer flu.
Yeah, it's
It's
not.
COVID. And people were like, oh no, there is summer flu. And it's like, but why do you think that is? I
Yeah,
think that COVID weakens your immune system, and there's a reason we're all now more susceptible to any virus.
yeah. And
When I
we
say it's COVID, it's like not just COVID right now, it's that you've had it so many times, and after so many infections, you don't have much of an immune system to battle summer flu.
exactly. We just had a friend that was battling the flu in the hospital. Like he
Yeah.
tested and confirmed it was the flu, but it ended up in the hospital for like 6 days. That sounds awful too. That sounds like it
Yeah.
could affect your health in the long term too. It's just it's a it's I think that at the end of the day,
Vaccinated? Did you know vaccinated against flu?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the thing. Like, and there's
yeah,
this whole anti-vax rhetoric. I remember when I was younger that everybody was like, not everybody. I remember there was the one fraudulent doctor who published a fake study about how vaccines cause autism, and so I remember there was like a little anti-vax crew
mhm.
of moms when I was growing up, and then that kind of faded away, and the pandemic has brought back this
Yeah,
anti-vax crew in full force in a way I don't think we've seen before.
yeah. The pandemic has brought back a lot of things we
It's
haven't seen.
brought back it's introduced a lot of things too. I do you is it just me or do you feel like when people were told they didn't have to mask outdoors anymore,
Mhm.
do you think that like people just stopped caring about others in general? I feel like
See, this is the
like
part where, yeah, this is the part where I'm like, I know the people who aren't masking at all, like, I know they care about other people. They go to links to help other people. So what,
yeah.
this is the part where I feel like really the thing that switched everybody, all of our brains around it was in, I think, like April 2022, when
Mhm.
Delta was lobbying for the, contagious period to go from 10 days to 5 days.
Yes.
And that masks were no longer required on flights. That to me
Yes.
is when everything shifted. But also there was a big shift in 2021. Um, I had written an essay for an outlet that no longer exists, but it was like an amazing. It was such
Mhm.
a great outlet. Anyway, I had written an essay about like what was in my drafts folder on TikTok, and so much of it
Mhm.
was stuff that I had made in 2020 when we were at home, and it got real silly. And so I just wrote a fun essay about it, and it was supposed to be published in February 2020, but other major news happened in February 2020 that really knocked COVID out of the news cycle, and it just never came
Mhm.
back into the news cycle. Or that was 2021, February 2021, and it just never
Yeah.
came back into the news cycle. And then when masks came off on weren't required any longer on flights in 2022, that was another massive like kind of attitude shift toward precaution. Those are the
Yeah.
two things that I really noticed things like majorly changing.
Yeah. And all of these precautions, so it always again just boggles my mind when people go, "Oh, well they're not required on flights anymore." It's
Yeah.
that was to benefit the economy. That there were decisions that were made for public health and at a certain point
Mm-hmm.
decisions started being made just for the economy and for
Yeah.
capitalism. It's like that doesn't mean that COVID's not contagious anymore or it's contagious for a short amount of time. It means that people are just more okay getting sick at work because they want people to get back to work. And I think that that was a major failing with both administrations.
Absolutely. And the thing that blows my mind is when I'm on a flight, like I was on a flight just a few weeks ago, and
Mhm.
if you just sit and listen for 1 minute when you're and almost anywhere indoors or in public
Yeah,
these days, it's just everyone's coughing, everyone's hacking up, everyone's
yeah,
sniffling.
yeah.
And I'm like, it wasn't always like we were not sick like we as a society, we're not always sick like this all
It's
over.
gross. Let me be not the first, but let me say it loudly. It's gross. We went out to have breakfast over the weekend. There was a cute little place that had outdoor dining. The sun was out. We went to get crepes, and a party sits down like 10 feet away from us. And one woman has like a very like thick, wet sounding cough. Like not just like huh, huh, but
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
you can hear the phlegm. The phlegm is phlegming. And we were just like, I mean, we ordered dessert crepes, we got them to go. We were just like, we gotta get out of here. Like, even though we were outdoors and like we feel very safe outside, I really struggled going back to school after being online for a year with even being indoors with massive people. And so like I have been seeing a therapist ever since, and that was something that I worked on overcoming, even like being comfortable outdoors around people, unmasked. But yeah, there are moments like that where I'm just like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
I just like I feel my skin crawl because I'm just like, my
Yeah.
husband was like, oh my God, who goes out that sick?
Ugh,
Um,
I
like when
know.
we were growing up, if we had a cough like that, it would be like, you're staying home today. And seeing people out with that level of illness is just
Yeah, it hits
freaks
you
me
right,
out.
right in the, yeah, same. It just, yeah. And it's just, it's weird being on a plane when you notice it because it's like, oh, I can't go anywhere. I wish I could,
Yeah.
but I'm here and I'm, I end up being really glad that I have my mask on.
Yeah. And like they circulate the air on planes. It's a myth that it's like all the same air. Like they do circulate air, but it's not enough. Not enough on a plane like that with people sitting and
Yeah, it doesn't feel, it certainly doesn't feel like enough.
yeah. Yeah, there's like that even pre-pandemic, there's like that gross like ugh, being on a flight feeling like you're just kind of like stuck and like nothing's moving. The air just felt stale even pre-pandemic and
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's also not the first pandemic. I people who are like, oh, things are back to normal. Oh, it's just like the flu. Everybody makes the flu comparison because obviously we weren't masking for the flu before COVID-19. And it's like if you look back to when influenza
Hmm.
for that first pandemic in the
Yeah.
1900s, people were masking and people were listening when people told them to mask. I think that having a pandemic in the digital age influenced a lot of people's
Oh, for sure.
reactions and willingness to wear PPE.
I had a funny moment. I was in Scotland for a summer trip in
Mm-hmm.
June and did this tour in Edinburgh where you could tour some of the old city that they had underground, and then they built on top of it when that flu pandemic
Mm-hmm.
hit. And so you kind of go through the history of it, and in one of the later rooms, you come in and it's got one of those doctor outfits on that has the long has a leather mask with like a long,
Yes.
and which is so funny. And so of course, like me and my family, like we were the only ones in a mask on the tour, and of course, like it was a group on the tour and a lot of people were like coughing and hacking, and we're
Mm-hmm.
standing in the room while the guy is explaining the history of this doctor's outfit and points at the masks and says at the time they thought it was spirits that were infecting them, but it turns out these doctors, he's saying why the doctors never got sick even when they were working with smallpox patients and flu patients. And he said it turns out it's this mask that he's wearing right there, which I almost started laughing because like we're wearing masks and that's the exact moment other people started coughing in that very closed in room. And I'm just like, so you're saying masks work? How
You're saying
interesting.
masks do something.
Yeah, it
I
felt like the weirdest, most ironic moment.
mm-hmm. And even like if we take COVID out of it,
Hmm.
um, it's just great to not be sick. When we mask and we go out and we mask indoors, I mean we don't get the common cold. We
Hmm.
don't get I mean we were able to make it through we've made it through every flu season. Everybody thinks that people like just get sick in winter and now there's a summer flu. We haven't gotten summer flu or anything because we've been masking.
Yeah,
And it's almost like it works and it's like I don't miss getting little sniffly colds.
I don't
Those
either.
suck. They're
There
annoying.
There, I know, right? And I remember there was one year where I got back-to-back bronchial infections because I would used to go to hot yoga like 10 years ago. And I kept getting sick from going, so I stopped going. And then the next cold that I got took months to go away. And it was just like, this is annoying. And it changes my life for a few months, like for weeks at a time. Like what it knock all the wood, but it is a relief to like
Yeah.
not have to have that constant disruption. Then again, like I know there are parents listening to this that are like, "Well, my kids just bring it home. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it." And so I wanna say it feels I feel very fortunate to even be able to say that because yeah, it is
Yeah.
hard to like get around that when you have kids.
Yeah, yeah, I know it's incredibly difficult if you have kids and then also if you're divorced and have kids and you have kids going between houses and you don't know what they're getting up to. I mean,
Yeah,
I think a lot of parents like kind of throw up their hands like there's only so much we can be doing and I
yeah,
feel for them and I think our government failed schools. I mean, filtration systems, HVAC, nothing has been updated in all of these old buildings and even in some hospital buildings, we don't have updated HEPA filtration and it's
yeah,
also expensive. I think the pandemic as a whole, I mean, we're lucky enough we have some like Levoit air filters. We try to put them in every room and like change out the filters that they're connected to like that app that tells you what your
Oh, nice.
CO2 levels are, which is great. Yeah, super fun. But that's privileged. A lot of people did not have access to anything more than the masks that were being handed out for free. I remember they had the free test program. They don't anymore. They were offering a lot of, I remember there would be sites where you could pick up free masks, at least in my area. I know that there are mask blocks now still, but
Mhm.
um, just resources were more widely available and you weren't shamed for using them. And now I get so many weird looks. Um, I don't
Ugh.
know about you too. We've had people who have coughed at us um, and like made comments about the masking too, like more than just looks. We've yeah been harassed for wearing them.
That's so wild to me. When I'm outside of Oklahoma, or when I outside, sorry, I grew up in Oklahoma. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
outside of Los Angeles, if I'm like, for example, visiting Oklahoma or any almost anywhere else, that's when I will get weird looks. Like people look like they want
Yeah,
to fight me, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're worried about, man. Like this is my decision for me right
yeah,
here. You don't need to like give me this dirty look or say weird things. Like it's
yeah,
I think that's part of where the anger phase of grief comes in because we are grieving an entire world that's never coming back. And I that honestly doesn't make me super sad. Like where we were before 2020, I was like running a really I love my business. My business was having the best years yet. I was doing well on social media. I was going to all the
mm-hmm.
parties and events and all of the doing all the networking connections and
Yeah,
I was doing all of the things all of the time. And then I was coming home and I was so sad and miserable. I would not get out of bed. I was struggling with depression. And that was just a factor of my life at the time. And so, as we got into this pandemic, and after a few years, when people started talking about let's go back to normal, I kept going like, what is normal? I didn't like the normal I was
yeah,
before. I don't care about going back. I'm ready to rebuild a new normal, to a new life, a new world.
yeah,
Let's do something different. Let's do something better. And so, at least at where I could in my own life, I spent time on that. But yeah, people saying like let's go back to normal. That there's no more normal to go back to. Like it's just gone. We have to start looking forward and thinking about how do we build a future together.
yeah. Yeah, that's a really great point. Like we had a normal before the pandemic, and it feels weird to go back to
Mhm.
who we were. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the pandemic changed all of us, and I mean, people hate change. I think a lot of people want to go back to what we had before the pandemic, but I certainly was moved during the short amount of time people cared about each other, and it would have been great to have a
Yeah.
new normal like that. And it's made me sad to see people kind of just revert back and try to forget about that time or refer to the pandemic as, I mean, obviously it was a horrible thing. People are still dying from it.
Hmm.
But people who have stopped masking kind of just like try to brush it aside. I mean, I remember there was that really powerful New York Times cover. I think they had hit 100,000 deaths at
Ah,
that point, and it was everybody's name.
yeah.
Um,
I remember that.
and obviously, there's been millions.
Yeah.
There's been millions of deaths, and then just the common sense too. In this country, I remember like nobody wants to work anymore, and nobody's getting back to work. And it's like people died. Your working force died.
Yeah, and also so many people are disabled now from
Yeah,
COVID, whether or not they
let's
know it.
talk about that.
So many people are disabled now. Like, what do you mean get back to work? A lot of people can't work. And also like everybody I do know who can work has three jobs. Like, what do you mean get back? Like when
Yeah,
I remember hearing that going like, what do you mean? Like everybody's working as much as they can. Even people who can't work are trying to work.
yeah,
And a lot of other people died. Like this is bad and we're just that the whole like nobody wants to work anymore was just sailing right past so many things.
yeah. No, and yeah, let's talk about COVID being disabling.
Yeah.
Because long COVID, everybody thinks this is like a new thing. I had a
Yeah.
friend who had long COVID in 2021. I
Yeah.
mean, we're going back to school on campus, and um, they aren't able to walk up a flight of stairs without getting winded. They aren't able to walk past the food trucks on campus without them smelling like trash. And we still don't have treatments. They were, trying to experiment. I remember monoclonal antibodies were somewhat helpful, but it wasn't doing much. It's not a new thing. People were getting long COVID and just didn't have a name for it. And it's truly disabling. My dad was already disabled pre-pandemic.
Mhm.
But the pandemic and having repeat infections did give him long COVID. So he is now in a wheelchair. There was like a period he had to go to the hospital, and I just feel like people aren't
Mhm.
thinking about what all of this leads to. Like we know that kids can have chicken pox when they're young, and then everybody saw shingles pop up. And so when the pandemic started, I thought, I don't want to get this because I don't know what this could mean, what could pop up in, 10,
Yeah.
15, 30 years from now. I don't know if there's something that's going to be hiding in us and
Yeah.
waiting to come out.
And I think something that people don't know about our healthcare system is maybe even not our healthcare system. Well, yes, about being on
Mm-hmm.
being disabled in this country it's a fucking nightmare to be disabled in this country. You get almost
Yeah.
no help. The help that you do get is very limiting. For example, if you're on disability, you can't have more than $2,000 in your bank account, or they'll kick you off. If you get married, they'll kick you off. It's such a system that doesn't really work for anybody and doesn't really do anything. And on top of that, I think a lot of people think like the one they won't become disabled because they haven't ever been disabled.
Yeah.
And I think they think that if they do have complications that medicine will have an answer for them. And that's just not the case a lot of the time. And I think if I could tell people anything, it's that COVID does not discriminate. It will disable you eventually, and our healthcare system is not set up to help you. I know a lot of the messaging around getting disability assistance from the government, it makes it sound like it's easy to get on and stay on, you get all this money. That is not the case. That is not it,
Disability is so hard to get on.
it takes years. It takes what, five at a minimum, 3 to 5
And it
years.
takes years. I mean, my parents, just to get my dad on disability pre-pandemic, after he was in an accident, I mean, it took years. It took lawyers. It took lawsuits. It's like
Yeah.
money we didn't have,
Yeah.
and a lot of people don't have those resources. Most people get rejected. I mean, the Social Security and disability, it's like insurance. Their first answer is no all the
Yeah.
time. Um,
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, people who think that like, oh, you're on disability, like people who are disabled have no rights in this country.
None. It's so shocking when you see it in play. It's so shocking and disheartening and scary. And the thing about it is, you can, if you say to people like, we need to fight for disability justice, we need to give support to disabled people in order so that they can exist in the world safely and accessibly. um the way people blow that off is, I think, one of the more disappointing things that I found
Yeah.
is that, if it really, so much of what we're being thrown around by right now comes back to disability justice. And yeah, I clearly, I believe, I feel strongly about that.
Yeah, it's true. It's the one marginalized group that you can become a part of at any time in your life.
Anytime.
And
And
it's the one group that you likely will become a part of, especially as you get older. I mean, medications are a form of accessibility.
yeah,
And it's something that, our healthcare system, especially in the pandemic, loved ignoring. The whole line was like, "Oh, well, it's only going after, the elderly or people who are disabled." And like
yeah,
those groups weren't worth protecting. That was
right?
crazy, by the
Like,
way.
I don't want elderly people to die from this. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's something that blew my mind. Is people going, oh, it really affects the elderly. It really affects people that already have, complications. And it's like,
It was like, "Don't worry, it just affects the elderly and the disabled." Like we're not supposed to care for those people.
yeah, like, are we really just supposed to forget people? And I mean, clearly
Yeah.
we have just it's something that I do find hard to reconcile in my mind. But I also, then when I, then sit with the people that I love, and regardless of where they're at and everything, like, I do know that, like, people care. We all do want to, we all do want to be better about, like, creating a better world. I do believe that. And so I think a better world is out there. I think there are more of us that want a better world than we think there are, and not just around COVID, but around everything. I think that I think that the energetic force of it is there, and it's a matter of like harnessing it together. I think a lot in person, honestly. I think social media does have a lot of good elements for building community, but I think our big changes are going to start coming from being together in person. But that also needs to be accessible to disabled people
Mm-hmm.
and to anybody. That needs to be safe. That needs to be something that doesn't risk disability or death by spreading viruses or stuff like that.
Yeah. No, and I think I definitely don't want to spend the whole time talking about COVID, but I do want to kind of segue into we're both in creative fields, and I one thing that I always try to remind people, we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, but I shared a picture the other day of the cast and crew of Severance on set recording, and everyone in the crew is masked.
Mm-hmm.
And this is recording the latest season.
Yeah.
This was recording like 2023, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
The latest season, and I'm sure they're doing it now, but I see these videos of Wicked was another example. There was a video of them putting Cynthia in, doing all the green and the makeup, and everybody is masked
Yeah. I
in
think
that.
production through 2023, there were still masking requirements and like testing requirements on set.
Yeah.
I've had a few friends that had guest roles or things that would show up and have to do testing as part of it. And that I feel like was through 2023. I think 2024, everything got so quiet that, that might have been up for debate. And so I'm not sure they have those rules in production right now, which is really, really disheartening.
I don't think they have the rules anymore. I'm still seeing masking on sets,
Yeah.
though. I'm still
Yeah.
seeing crew members mask.
Right, it's there. Like, and when you get into specific industries where like losing people to even being sick for 1 week will cost a company millions and millions of dollars, then
Yeah.
you start seeing the protections. And I'm really curious what's going on in insurance companies right now, because that's something that has also been on my mind, is like, what the insurance companies have to look at the reality of the situation. Like, they have to know, like, they know COVID is going to disable a huge parts of our population.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to pay for that? I feel like probably not. And, so how is that going to change our insurance coverage? That kind of thing. So when you get into industries that can't deny where we're at, that's when things start to change a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that one thing about COVID, it's everything's changing every single day, every month. We're going to see changes in the next few years. As much as it changed people, I think that the more people get repeat infections, it affects cognitive function.
Yeah.
So my mom and I always joke, like, if you've had repeat COVID infections and refuse to mask, like,
Yeah.
I question kind of your executive function at that point after so many infections. That was something I was horrified of at the
Yeah.
beginning. I was like, I love food. I was like, I don't want to lose my sense of taste. I don't want to lose any of my function. I just, that
Mm-hmm.
was important to me. It's like, I think disabled is not a bad word, but I think a lot of people were scared of disabilities,
Mm-hmm.
and then conveniently forgot or wanted to forget about, the idea of being disabled themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's because we don't set up a society that has respect for disabled people.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a big part of it. Like, people, the way that they think about disability, it should be so different. But the way that we've really set it up for people in society is not anything that's going to help us right now. Like, we need to
Yeah.
rethink how we think about disability and people who are disabled, and how we offer support as people need it.
Yeah. Ugh, I'm so sick of people.
I know there are some days where I zone out and I'm like, I can't do the world today. But I really do think that some I have optimism, which I
Yeah.
feel like
You seem very optimistic. You're more optimistic than I am, and you're in your fellow man.
I feel optimistic, because I do think that so much of the challenges we face are challenges that, like, once people get to the heart of it, they'll start to understand things differently. I think that there are people out there who don't have good intentions and never will have good intentions, and they benefit from the bad things that are happening. I think that's very real. But I don't think that as much as they've influenced things and then influenced what we experience online, which does kind of shape how we feel about the world, I just don't. I think most of us are ultimately good and want to see change and want to see things different. Like I do have optimism, but also I simply, if I did not have optimism, I don't know. I don't know how we all get up and like do anything every day without the thought of like, this could be better. We could do it better.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you have a lot of goodness in yourself, which is how you see it in other people. The way I think about it is I've gotten to this point where like I just don't care about what other people think. Like we go out with our masks, and I
Yeah.
think that's a big hurdle, especially for young people who stopped masking. I think at a certain point as you get older, you let that go. I think a lot of people were masking because they saw other people doing it, and I think those who are still masking are leaders. Um, I think at least we're trying to be, but we have that mindset, and I think we're adaptable too. I know a lot of lovely creatives who are also masking, and I think that's definitely something we all have in common is our willingness to accept change and to
Yeah.
think about others. And I think when you're creative, you also have an immense amount of empathy that
Hmm.
kind of allows us to create really beautiful things. And I think that that definitely, at least in my mind, contributes to why we're able to still mask and think about others in the way that we do.
Absolutely. And I do think it is, I think there are more people that are COVID cautious than it seems like, because
Yeah.
one thing I've seen event planners talk about lately is that a lot of events are falling flat, like the attendees aren't buying tickets, things like that. And I actually think there's a big part of that that's like people are tired of getting sick and they're just opting out.
Yeah.
Like they're just not taking the risk. And I think there's a lot of like peer pressure. Like I think a lot of people probably would mask, but they feel that peer pressure when they're
Mhm.
in public. um I don't know. It's such an what this whole experience has taught me on a personal level is like I do have friends who really support me and show up for me and like want me to feel safe when we're around. Like and shout out to those people. Like
Mhm.
they're pretty awesome. Like they will, a friend of mine, she came into town and it was her birthday and she's wanted everybody to go out to dinner, and I emailed her and I said I would love to do this, but I am actually still COVID cautious. Like if there's, I'm there if it's outside,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
otherwise I will see you the next time here. I didn't want to ask everybody to change all of their plans.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, we're doing it outside. And then, we had a big dinner outdoors, which at that point I felt good. I felt good about.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so lovely. And
it
yeah, I
was
was going to
really
say we have those friends too, as I feel like something that I've loved that has come out of the pandemic is just our chosen family. I think while we have lost and just decided to not really move forward with certain family members, we've picked up a lot of wonderful friends and who I think of as chosen family, who are willing to do the same thing. The friends who are closest to us, the people who we just had in our wedding, we threw a COVID informed wedding outside 100% with people, all of those people who are willing to make accommodations were the people who we had, there and by our side that day.
I love that. I love that.
But yeah, and those friends, yeah, shout out to those friends for all of us who make those accommodations. I feel like I really found out who my true friends were. The friends who were willing to say, hey, no, no, of course I'm bringing a mask. Of course I'll have one. Or of course we can do it outside. I'm meeting a friend. I have like a work trip soon in September. I have not flown since the start of the pandemic. I'm driving for this one 3 hours to avoid flying. And my
Yeah.
friend was like, oh, hey, I'll look for patios for when you're coming through on the way back and we can go get dinner. And it's like, it's so easy to make those accommodations. And the friends who are willing to do it are your friends.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that about the people in my life. Like they're really, really incredible.
Yeah. Because you also, I always think the people who aren't accommodating, I think like, what an asshole. Like, even if this was not pandemic related, if one of your friends was like, hey, I can't, I mean, think about it this way. If a friend said, hey, I can't get there, my wheelchair can't go up those steps,
Yeah,
what an asshole would you look like saying, oh, sorry, you can't come? And I feel like with masks, it's obviously not the exact same. That's a very different accommodation, but like in a similar vibe, you're saying no to a disabled friend or
yeah,
somebody who needs an accommodation. And a mask is such a simple one.
yeah. It is so simple.
But yeah, think about that, friends. Would you do that to another friend? It's truly though, like if somebody needed mobility aid, would you say, oh, sorry, you're not invited to my birthday? Or would you try to make accommodations for that person?
Exactly, exactly. And I think most of us would make accommodations. I think once most of us have made sense of what's in front of us, we are willing to help other people and support other people.
Yeah.
I really do believe that about the majority of us.
I think the problem was that the Trump administration politicized masking so much. I think that if it hadn't been politicized, more people would have been, if someone had led by example a little more. Um, and if it hadn't been politicized, I think most people would have just followed their instinct and wanted to help their neighbor.
I think so too. And I part of me just feels like, wow, we were just doomed from the start. Like,
Truly, yeah. And
yeah,
again, both administrations, I think the Biden administration
agreed.
is to blame for how they picked up those pieces and kind of tried. I mean, they had the free test program,
Yeah.
um, but I still think that they did not talk about public health as much as they should have. They did not lead by example. I mean, Biden had people coming in to brief him who were masked, but in all pictures he was unmasked, and like I think that our journalists failed us too in not covering those moments.
Yeah.
I mean, press rooms were still full of people masked. That's not what you saw on TV, and
Exactly. Like I
such a
remember
yeah,
when probably 2021, 2022, there's an article where they were touring the Situation Room in the White House where that had
yeah,
just been redone, and it had been redone with UV lights that kill germs. And I remember seeing that and thinking like the people at the top, like they might not look like they're taking precautions, but they absolutely are. They're taking
they
precautions that
are.
aren't available to most of us.
It's
And
really dystopian, I
it really
think, to
is.
like I always remind people, I always post those pictures of cast and crew masking behind the scenes because I feel like people need to be reminded that the entertainment you enjoy is
Yeah.
brought to you by, people still wearing respirators and people taking those precautions. And
Mhm.
it doesn't sell, but it sells behind the scenes when we're driven by money.
Uh-huh.
When we're trying to protect a business, people are more likely to mask.
I agree. I agree.
But anyway, yeah, so we're still masking at work. I work from home. You
Mhm.
do a lot of in-person work
Mhm.
still. Obviously as a photographer and videographer. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you do?
Oh yes, I work with I love what I do. I wake up every day and I'm like, I cannot believe I get to do this for a job. Like that is it's wild to me because I for about 10 years I was a journalist and I was an editor and a writer and I loved that. But I left the industry about 10, 11 years ago. Everything really took such a dramatic shift to move online. And I was like, I felt like I
Yeah.
was constantly in a battle between me and my publisher who was like, get the story up, get the story up. And I was like, I'm not done fact checking. Like, we're not doing anything with this yet. And it was all about like timeliness, get it up, get it up. And I wasn't into that urgency, like kind of feeling. I was really into like taking time to go in depth and ask more questions. So I went back to school for photography for about a year, which I felt very lucky to be able to do. And then after about a year, I went full time being a photographer, which was probably a little too early to do that. I didn't have everything in place. I really should have, but I went for it. And somehow I'm still doing it. So I feel really lucky. So I do, yeah, photo and video, which is, I did not expect when I started photos, I did not expect to one
Mm-hmm.
day do video, but it has been such a treat and such a joy. It really is interesting the way you interact with the person in front of your camera
Mm-hmm.
if when you're doing photo versus when you're doing video. I find
Mm-hmm.
it more it can be more emotional on video projects can be more emotional, which I think is so interesting. And then I do website design because I love it all. And I started doing websites very low key by referral only. And then that hit a tipping point where I felt like, oh, wait, this is a service that I offer now. Basically, I guess I should tell people about it. So I do all of it. I work with creative brands, both small and medium sized brands. Not that I don't want to work with big brands. I love working with big brands. Big brands, if you're listening, I love working with you. Um,
Sponsor the pod, sponsor Paige Ray.
right, sponsor the pod, sponsor the pod. But I'm very fortunate that most of my clients are these small and medium sized brands. They are so willing to take risks, which I think is one of the cool things. Like the bigger brands are less
Yes.
willing to get risky, but the medium sized brands that are established but want to feel something different in the market or want people to like want to feel like they're being experienced differently in the market are willing to take a risk at that point.
Mhm.
And that is something I love. Like, take the risk because there's so much noise out there. It's growing exponentially every day. Like,
Mhm.
taking a risk is the way to
Yeah.
get in front of people anyway.
And so you're self-employed, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You- That's something I'd love to get into. So we both do client-based work. Have
Mm-hmm.
you ever said no to taking on a client?
Yes, and I've only done it a handful of times, and I felt like I
Mhm.
didn't get to say no until um maybe 4 or 5 years into being self-employed, because I felt
Yeah.
like I was constantly, for those first 4 or 5 years, when I say I wasn't really ready to go like full time.
Mhm.
I did it a little early. It's because I did not have. I should have had more savings. I should have had a better plan. I should have had. I
Mhm.
had clients hiring me, but I didn't have enough clients hiring me. And so for those first 4 or 5 years, I was struggling. Every month on the 30th of the month, I was crying like, "Oh my God, am I going to make rent?" Like, I got it was a close call a lot of times. And so by 2018, 2019, though, I had figured out my messaging. I had figured out who I was really good at working with, how to get to them, how to talk to them, how to make something for them that really mattered for them. And that's when things started being really solid. It was 2018, 2019. And so that I remember, like 2019, I was on a call with like a discovery call, and I usually work with women, but and sometimes I will work with, I'm not against working with men. I just usually happen
Mhm.
to work with women.
Hey,
And
nothing against that. I have yet to have a man on this podcast.
you know what? I had a podcast for like a year, and my rule was, if there's going to be a male guest on my podcast, that he has to be such an expert at what he does that no other woman can speak to it. Because if it's between a male expert and a woman expert on a topic, I'm going to pick the woman expert. And I just
Yeah.
never found a guy that was.
You never, yeah,
I never had a male guest on
who was such an expert that you couldn't find a woman doing it better.
right, like it was always, yeah, like I never ended up having male guests because I never found a man that was doing it better than a woman or that knew better than a woman. And so I wanted to lift up women and talk to women. Oh, so by 2019, I was having a sales call with a guy who was like a coach in his industry, like kind of a go go go, hustle 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 type of personality. And he said, when we do the shoot, can you turn around files to me the next day? And I said, I can't do that. And he said, well, why not? Like, can't you just sit down at your desk and get them edited? And I said, I'm juggling this amount of clients at any given
Mhm.
time. And I've
Every
got to,
client thinks they're the only client. Every
right. Well,
client thinks they are the only client.
right. Well, and he was the first really personality I'd encountered like that. And I said, I have a pipeline. You go in the pipeline. Your photos get addressed in the order that they're edited, but I can guarantee you a
Yeah.
delivery date on them. Like a 3-week turnaround. And he said, no, I want them within 48 hours. Can you bump people out of the pipeline? And I said, no, I can't do that.
No.
And so we got off the call with a promise of following up, but I just emailed him afterward and I said, I just don't think we're the right fit. And I let it be that. So that was the first time I ever really turned somebody down, and it felt like a big deal because it would have been a good payday, but I was like, this is going to be a headache. I'm going to be constantly
Yeah.
worried about it. And
Did he get back to you?
no, he never responded.
Love
And
that.
or he didn't, I don't remember, but I think he did never respond, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But it's rare that I turn down a project. I feel like mostly because I am pretty honed in on who I work with, and I think people who land on my marketing really get a sense of what I can do for them and if they're right for me and if they're not right for me. So I also feel pretty fortunate in that. It's rare that I'm on the phone with somebody that I'm like, oh, this isn't the right fit.
Yeah. No, you gotta, what do they say? Protect your peace.
Mm-hmm.
I think with clients, so I'm not self-employed. I do like a little freelance on the side, but I work full time at an agency, so I don't get to pick the clients. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I will say in my freelance, I've definitely scaled back. I used to do more of it. I do a lot less of it now just because I got burned too many times. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's been like the one that had me be like, okay, I'm like no longer. I think it's in my state you have to make over 500 or $600 doing freelance, like to pay taxes on it. I was like, I'm no longer taking more than that. I was like, I'm not doing I'm not
Yeah.
going to be doing it so much that I have to like pay these huge amounts of taxes. It's just not worth it for me. And there was one client who pushed me to that last year.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's always like it's one person who really like shifts the process for everybody else.
It was the last straw for me. I changed my contract, I changed my
Mhm.
deposit policy.
Yeah.
We paused the project because Mercury was in retrograde, by the way.
No. Oh no. Like not that I'm an astrology girly, but I even still like we're on a timeline.
I'm a Sagittarius, but I'm also a small business girl
Right.
who needs to
Exactly.
get paid.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I changed my contract, I changed my process, and as soon as I put those boundaries down, I had somebody reach out to me for a project that was like a huge website. It would have been. It was actually a referral of this person, and I sent them a new contract. They probably heard from her that I didn't have a great contract, and that I took a small deposit. I
Yeah.
redid it after this one client. I sent them the contract. I was like, I take 50% down. Here is the contract and the timeline. I like hate project managing and doing those timelines, but I made one. I was like, here it is. And they were like, oh, we'll get back to you. They did not. Narrator, they did not.
They did not.
But I take every experience like that as a learning opportunity. I like am not here to put anybody on blast. It was a learning opportunity for me. It was my fault for not having a better
Yes.
contract in place and for not taking more of a deposit. But yeah, I've changed my policies now, and those new policies have kept away a lot of poor clients.
And the funny thing that over time that I really have seen play out is like the people that you're meant to work with, like you will not be able to talk them out of working with you. No, like you,
Mm-hmm.
whatever contract you put in front of them as whatever ironclad stuff you put down, whatever boundaries you put down, the people who you are meant to work with will be game, right? And the
Yeah.
people who don't want it are people that were just going to take advantage of your process to begin with,
Yeah.
and that ends up being such a headache. So I do think it's a good, like, as early and often as you can, say no to projects
Yeah.
that, like I took projects a lot out of like nothing too much out of desperation, but it took me a long time to
You have
find.
to pay bills. You have to. It's like you can say no as long as you like have your bills paid, but a lot of times we say yes because we need the money.
Gotta pay bills, yeah, and I feel like a lot of people are in that position right now. Like you got to pay the bills, and I agree. Like pay those bills. I also the jobs that I took that I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe I have to go do like, and like there was a time when I needed a job that was like a bridge. Like I wasn't making enough as a photographer, but I didn't want to go back to a 9 to 5, so I took a job. Um, doing studio management for a headshot photographer, and while it was still working for somebody else, like the hours were flexible. I learned so much about photography and business and sales from this photographer. Like she's still a good friend and she was incredible to learn from. And so even though I was like, okay, I need to find something that's not photography to pay the bills, which felt disappointing. Like it made me feel like a failure at the time. But it really was like something that springboarded me forward ultimately. So yeah, exactly like you were saying, like we're always going to learn something, even from the jobs that we're just
Yeah.
like, oh, I really dig this.
Yeah. Um yeah, and that's truly how I view it. And obviously like what a horrible business person I would be if I like was just publicly shitting on clients all the time. But I truly mean it. I feel like um in any situation like that, it's very much on us as the freelancer, as the business owner to be setting those boundaries. And um I mean, no, yeah, what's the phrase? No one can take advantage of you without your consent, or nobody. Yeah, is that it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and people really will like something that's so interesting to me is I don't think it's people taking well. So when I describe people, like I have some friends who will ask for absolutely anything they can think of, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting to watch because it looks like, wow, you're asking for too much. Wow, you're really asking for things you shouldn't be asking for. But they aren't really concerned with the answer. Like, because sometimes someone will say yes to something and they'll win, and like it'll be a big moment for them. And so they don't care how many no's they get along the way. So I think
Yeah.
something that's interesting on the flip side of it all is some people just ask just to see what will happen. The result doesn't really influence their decision either way. They just ask to see what someone's going to say, and I think that's interesting. Like obviously we always want to be respectful, but I think people who I think sometimes like we can ask for more than we realize we can ask for.
Yeah. I there's that like um meme of like uh when a client accepts your first proposal and you think, oh crap, I could have charged more.
Hmm. Exactly. I had a client one time who booked me really quickly and then immediately said, by the way, you need to raise your prices. She's like, I would have paid way more. And I was like, I hear that. I'm going to do that right. And I did that immediately. And
Heard,
something,
chef.
yeah, I know exactly. Yes, chef. Thank you. I loved her. She was so wonderful to work with. And I immediately raised my prices. I think I raised them $500, and I heard crickets for a long time, which was weird. And so I, instead of dropping the price back down, I raised my prices another $500, maybe another 750. I think I went from like 1250. This was almost 10 years. I went 10 years
Mhm.
ago. I went from 1250 for a half day shoot, which is almost no money, to I think 1750. Wasn't booking anything. I was fully booked at 1250. Obviously,
Mhm.
everybody wanted, like, yeah, that was a good price. And so 1750, almost impossible to book at that. And then I raised to 2500, and I was fully booked again. No hiccups. It was so
There's like that sweet spot. It's like I
yeah.
found that when we were looking for photographers for our wedding, there were some people who charged so little, we were like a little skeptical. And then there were people who we
Yeah.
ended up settling, actually, no, not settling. I mean, settling like in a price range that we felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
We did not settle with photographers. We had the best photographer ever, but we
Yeah.
had people quoting us anywhere between 1250, like you said,
Mhm.
and 12,000.
Yeah. It's a
We
range.
ended up with somebody who was 5 to 6 thousand.
Nice.
Um,
That's
but
yeah.
like it was one of our top priorities. We were able to do a wedding under 30,000, but that was like one of our top. We wanted to have really nice pictures. That was a priority. I grew
Totally.
up with a professional photographer for a mom, and so like it
Nice.
was very important for me. And I feel like the people who value good photography will pay those rates. So I think it's very interesting for me to hear that there was like a certain range where you would raise them, but not high enough that like
Yeah.
it was
Sometimes
in that little valley where people are like skeptical, but they look at your work and it's really good and they're like not quite sure.
that's it is. There's like sometimes you raise your prices, but you didn't, and you think, oh, I raised them too much, but the truth is you just didn't raise them enough. And wedding
Yeah.
photography is so interesting. I used to work in weddings for a little while, and
What an
there
industry, my
is
God.
what an industry. And there is somewhere between charging 3 and 5,000 to shoot a wedding. There is that is if you are a photographer, what you want to do is get over the 5,000 mark as quickly as possible, because
Yeah.
that's where a lot of really amazing, I mean, not that there aren't any book like amazing bookings under 5,000, but something you are in stiff competition when you're in the 3 to 5 range, because a lot of wedding photographers are in the 3 to 5 range, and a lot of
Yeah.
the newer photographers are under 3. So this 3 to 5 gets real sticky for photographers. And so getting out of it and getting into the 5 plus range is a
Yeah.
real sweet spot if you're doing weddings.
There's also like this the 3 to 5 range is interesting to me because obviously photos can be worth more than that. And obviously, so I know there are some wedding packages people want someone to document the whole weekend. Like wedding weekends are becoming a thing now. And um there's I feel like when we started playing wedding, there's kind of like numbers you have in your head. Like we were like, oh, like we'll probably be able to get somebody for this and that. And then when you start seeing so many line up, like our budget for photography was determined by looking at X number of sites and seeing that everyone was about in that range. So that makes a lot of sense to me that when you have so many people in that range, that kind of dictates where
Yeah.
people are booking. So that when we saw the like 11 and 12,000 ones, we were like, respectfully, no, thank you. How do you feel about that, by the way? There was a lot of, and no right or wrong answer, there was a lot of, I felt like gatekeeping of pricing.
Oh,
Some
this
people
is
wouldn't even give us prices until we got on the call with them. Some of them, like, a lot of people, I was totally fine to like give them my email to get it sent to me via
mhm,
email. No problem with that. Some people put it on the site, some people did that, but some people would not tell us
mhm.
until they called us.
So yeah, I am a big proponent of put your starting price on your website, even because
Yeah.
some people have like prices that go up or down. How many assistants
Yeah.
do you need? Are they going to be premier and those kind of thing? But I'm a big believer in a starting price on your website, because people will, if you're a photographer, people will go, and I believe this with any creative, people will go to your website, and when you make good work, it will look expensive. And if you have no price on your website, there will be people who say, I doubt I can afford that. I'm not even gonna inquire. And they could
Yeah.
be. in your range. Like you could be in their budget. And
And
so
also the flip side of that too, there were photographers we looked at their work and we thought, oh, this is like a similar quality of what we just looked at another site. Let's reach out. And then they ended up being
mhm.
like $12,000.
I know, right? Isn't that so? I actually, there was a time when I got to assist a really big deal, like luxury wedding photographer
Mm-hmm.
for like almost a whole season, and they were a film photographer, so I rolled their film and loaded their film
Mm-hmm.
and shot their film as they were shooting, which was interesting. And one of it was one of the reasons that they were so expensive. Also, they were just an amazing artist,
Oh, they
and
shot on film.
they shot on film, and so they mostly did hybrid because you
Yep.
do get to a certain point of the night where you have to light everything, and so sometimes you just pull out,
Yeah, it doesn't work.
right? I mean, I feel like probably there are some other really big name film photographers in weddings who probably do shoot film all night, but I mean, there are digital backups. I've seen digital backups for even those jobs,
Even
but
digital shooting at night though, like
yeah, I mean that
yeah.
because yeah, so yeah, your lighting's got to be really on point. So, I love. Oh man, I loved shooting. I really loved shooting weddings. My back would say otherwise. Physically, it was a little bit much after shooting.
That was quite literally what pushed my mom out of doing photography. She just, it felt like she got hit by a train the next day. She couldn't do it. And also because people don't feed photographers. I remember she would come back from weddings and be like, oh yeah, I had a Diet Coke in the car. And I'd be like,
Right? Even if it's in your contract, even if they put aside a meal for you,
mhm,
sometimes you'll get pulled into photos because you'll be about to sit down to eat and somebody will say, no, the bride and groom need you for this, right? And so you don't want to miss anything. And so
yeah,
sometimes it's like a pressure to even like not sit down and eat, even if somebody's made time. But sometimes like people just don't know to
yeah,
feed your photographer, which I think is a bummer
yeah.
because like that is a long day and it is
I
a
only, yeah,
day.
I
Yeah.
only knew because my mom had done them. So we were like, please sit down. We had like a
Yep.
vendor table. We were like, we don't need pictures of us eating. We don't look cute when we
Yeah.
eat. Just like, please. So I think they got, at least I hope, I feel
Mhm.
like they got like 20-ish minutes to
Yeah.
like go off. Like they had their own space to like leave equipment and like they got a table and
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I just, that day is so much for people.
And
But
there's,
you were saying this film photographer, how much did they charge?
I think the last I knew about their pricing, which would have been in maybe even in 2018, 2019, I think they were in the closer, getting close to the 10K range or maybe above that.
It's got to
Um,
be above it now because the
oh, for
pandemic did to wedding pricing.
Oh yeah.
Holy cow.
And so like film is really expensive. Like it's so if I am shooting on film, most film photographers in weddings are doing it on medium format. So like one roll of medium format film is going to be maybe like I don't know, $10 to $15. You'll only get 15 exposures on that roll because it's bigger. We usually think of film as like a 35 millimeter smaller thing where you get 36 exposures. But medium format, you get about 16, and so you're shooting more of it, and it's about $10 to $15 to buy, and then to process, develop, scan in your lab it's going to be another like $10 to $20. So one roll of medium format film shot at your wedding is going to cost $30 to get your photos in hand.
And
And
if you
then
think about the cost per image, then the
yeah,
cost per image is going up because it only shoots that many exposures. So if you
exactly.
think about a lot of these galleries are huge for weddings, that's a whole day of shooting.
It's a whole day of shooting, and then it was so interesting to like see this process firsthand. So like I on the wedding day, a film photographer will shoot 100 rolls of medium format film. They will spend $3,000 getting that film alone developed, and then there's transportation. You have to have an assistant if you're doing that.
Yeah.
Um, and you're probably staying overnight. There's just a million different things. So that's when you start to see how that like five-figure price tag breaks down. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I wish we could have spent more on photography. We got the perfect photographer, but there were some there were friends that I had who had gotten married and I was like, "Oh yeah, like I love their photography. Let me reach out to them." And it was really expensive and I was like, "Wow, good for you." Had no idea this is how much it costs. But yeah, we
Right.
had our original wedding budget, if you'll believe it, was 15,000. We were like, we're
Yeah.
not spending more than a down payment. We're gonna like that was our rule. We were like no more than a down payment on a house in our
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
that was kind
I
of
think
our
I
test, and
think
it, yeah.
spending 5 to 6 is a great range. Like you'll find a good photographer. It will feel like a good energy exchange. Like I think a 5 to 6
Mhm.
range budget for weddings is great. And I know people are going to hear that and go like, okay, okay, money bags, like sure.
Yeah.
And, I
But
totally.
seriously though, no, our photographer, shout out Annie Sharp Photography,
Mhm.
um, in Lancaster. She did an amazing job. And for that, we got an assistant, we got 8 hours of shooting, like we got a
That's
huge gallery. It also, to your earlier point about like pricing being too low,
mhm.
there we did talk to a few people who were like in that 1200 to
I feel
2500
like
ish range, and some of them were great. Like some of them I was like, hey, you're undercharging,
yeah.
your work is amazing. And then there were some who I could tell they might just be starting out, but a red flag for
Mm.
me, at least in one meeting, was when they said, oh, we give you all of the raw photos.
Oh no.
They were
Oh,
like, we give you, they said, we don't hold back, we give you everything. And I was like, that is my mom was in the industry, so I
so
knew
you
from
knew.
her experience. I was like, that was a red flag for me.
Yeah.
um I
Yeah.
was like, I don't care what, I was like, I don't care what your materials are, you do great work. Like we were looking at portfolios, but yeah, when I heard that, I was like, oh. And
Yeah.
their range was, I believe, 1800 to 2200, and I was like, that is just too cheap, and it's,
No.
that
Yeah.
doesn't sound like a good process.
Yeah, and when you're in that really low range, and I think for any type of creative work, this is the lesson that you learn. One of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to book a ton because you are going to be one of the cheaper like creatives
Yeah.
in the industry, and so you'll book a ton, and it'll feel exciting and good. But then you get in front of the work, and you realize how much like time and energy that work costs you,
Yeah.
and you'll realize like, oh, this is not enough money for the time that I have to put into it, and either you stay on that path of not charging enough, you're going to burn out, or you're going to raise your prices. And the problem is like when you raise your prices out of that, the people that the like everybody that you built like a business with at those lower prices, they don't come with you to the higher prices, and so it feels like that lag, it feels like a dip, and it feels really scary, and then it's hard to stay at the higher new prices.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of like creatives that start at a good price and stay there. And people, I think, get worried about like, well, my work's not good enough to charge that higher price. That's not a new problem. That is when you go apprentice, be an assistant,
Mhm.
get a mentor. Like
Yeah.
that's when it's time to go learn, and then charge those prices. But I do think we've also forgotten the art of like assisting and learning, and like
Yeah.
it's really become about going to a workshop or going to some kind of program or something like that. But really, like the most valuable like change that I saw in my own work, like me getting better as a photographer and as an artist only really ever came from assisting other photographers who were better than me and were so generous in their willingness to teach me how to do things better. And so I think we've kind
Mhm.
of forgotten like you can go be an assistant, you can go, if you're a photographer, you can go like
Mhm.
clean up a photo studio after a photographer and then ask them a bunch of questions. Like you can do anything to learn how to be better at what you're doing.
Yeah. That is an aspect of the creative industry and creative fields that I wish I could have experienced before the
Mhm.
pandemic hit.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Especially as a junior starting out at an agency, I wish I could have learned through osmosis like that. I wish I could have like seen
Mhm.
what was going on in rooms or meetings I wasn't invited to, just like kind of peeking at stuff and seeing over people's shoulders. I know the tattoo industry is one that is still very like rooted in, you start with an apprenticeship, and like once you break in and like you have to have somebody guiding you. um
Yeah.
Everybody's like very anti self-taught tattoo
Mhm.
artists. At least all the tattoo artists I've known are like, you need an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
because there are things you don't think about when you're getting into it, like they have to stay up to code, they have to have training in health safety with needles, they like, I think people just like think it's like a cool fun industry. And with photography too, you learn all these things, like you're not just paying for the shooting on the day, you're paying for the
Mhm.
hours and hours of editing that come after.
Yeah, and also for like when you are trying to learn like lighting, for example, you can go take a class, like, or you can go to a workshop. But those are such nice pre-planned environments for you to throw up a light and practice
Mhm.
with. It is a different world when you are on set and you have to light something that you've never lit before. You have to
Mhm.
achieve an aesthetic that your client is asking for in a space that's not conducive to that. Like being able to light on the fly, or being able, like, knowing what you need to do in terms of lighting when you're in a pressure situation, that's the kind of thing that comes, that you learn when you are assisting, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah.
come from a workshop, it doesn't come from a class, like it comes from being on set and doing it wrong sometimes so you can figure out how to do it right. And I think that's a big thing. I think that's a major thing.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you're just starting out, like for photography with lighting, for example, somebody could just like kind of like
Mhm.
jiggle with the ISO and then their images end up grainy.
Yeah, and you know, when you're on set, I mean, you can get as technical as you want with lighting. Like if you want to use like a light meter and get everything
Mhm.
the right setting right from the start, but like
Yeah.
you can do that, but even that takes a lot of experience that you're probably not going to learn in a class. Like the
Yeah.
troubleshooting part of, like, I'm in a situation where something's not working and I need to figure out how to make it work now. That comes from being in those pressure situations, and it's better to
Mhm.
be in those situations when you're not the one that has to answer for it, right? When you're an assistant and not the photographer that has to figure it
Yeah.
out, right? And learning from that situation, like, yeah, such a different thing.
Those were some of my favorite experiences. I was like yearbook editor. I did photography in high school, a little bit in college. So obviously not as experienced, but one of my favorite shoots ever was doing a graduation at my high school. We just got to like they picked a few of the photography students, and obviously I was in the yearbook, so I had to take photos. But
Nice.
there was no pressure. We like I think we
Mhm.
got like a $50 gift card or something, but there was no pressure for our images to be perfect, and so it was a great situation to practice with because I'd be like having to quickly figure out settings to get a shot. But if I didn't get it, it was also not the end of the world because I wasn't one of the like
Really.
paid professionals there.
I love that. And you know, working in weddings, I ended up being I'm so fast with my camera settings on set. Like my
Mm-hmm.
clients get very surprised at how much I can get done in a half day or a full day. But weddings are, talk about a high pressure environment
If you
where
miss that moment, you miss it.
exactly. That was the other thing that freaked me out. Like I love shooting weddings, but I was constantly worried that I was going to miss something. And
Yeah.
thank goodness in the years I did it, I didn't miss anything and I didn't like lose a card, which is, hey, it happens. But I was constantly worried that something was going to go wrong that I couldn't fix. And that really scared me. Like that worried me a lot. So when I finally like moved more into commercial work, that was kind of a relief to be like, anything that goes wrong, we can fix it. Like we can always redo it. Like there's always a way to fix it. But with
Yeah.
weddings, if it's gone, it's gone.
You can't uncut the cake. You can't redo the ceremony.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was something I didn't even thought about that. I tried to be a very chill bride, but one of the things that I was like most nervous about was photos. Like we found out the day before, like, oh hey, like we as I said, we had a very COVID informed, COVID
Mhm.
cautious wedding. And so we had a tent outside and they had told us, oh, in the event of rain, we go under the tent. What they did not tell us until a day before was that if there's thunder or lightning,
Oh
we can't be under the tent at all. Like we're gonna have to go fully inside. So the day before we're told, hey, we're seeing thunderstorms on the radar. And luckily we didn't have it. Spoiler alert, it was fine. It was a beautiful overcast day. There was no direct light. It was perfect for photos. But
no.
the day before, we were like, oh, so we've made a plan. We were like, we'll go down with Carly's family. Like my family is the only one who's still masking.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, we'll have this room, we'll eat here, and then we'll put on masks to go join the party. But we were like, we don't want to be masked in photos. It was like,
Yeah.
so like it kind of took the wind out of our sails. But we were like, we just want to get married. Like as long as we can get some pictures. We had like gazebos and there were covered spots. We were like, as long as we get some photos and like we can do like a family picture under like the cover of a gazebo, we're fine. And then luckily that didn't happen. But we were
Right.
so chill the day of just because we were like, the worst case scenario didn't happen. And I think a lot of people get caught up in having like certain photos. Like there was one I got like colored sunglasses. We had like a rainbow theme. I got sunglasses for our nieces and nephews and our party members. And I remember our photographer was like, oh my gosh, we have to like, we still have that photo to get. And I went up to them and I said, it's fine. I was like, just let everybody have fun. I was like, it would have been cute, but it's like, we had a rainbow on our wedding day. I was like, you got a rainbow on camera? I was like, just go eat. I was like, just go eat. Like, we do not need a sunglasses photo. That's silly. but yeah, I feel like so many people, I could tell kind of from the energy of our vendors just how much other couples like are on them on the day. We had our planners. I always like getting an A and being a client, but I was very touched when our planner was like, we would have planned the day the same way you did. Like, you're making me want to get married again. And I didn't want to get married again, but she was like, you guys are just like so chill. And we were like, it's not a big deal. Nothing, a golf cart ran over my veil. I hadn't walked down the aisle yet. The bottom of my veil, nobody can see it in photos because they probably didn't give them to us, but a golf cart ran over my veil that was going to take us to the ceremony site. And so it's like bunched up and there's like dirt. It like crimped it in spots. And our planners are like, oh no, we got it, we got it. And I was like, guys, it was $25 on Etsy. It's fine. I was like, we can cut it off. It's fine.
Well, and I
Um,
think like that, approaching it like that is where the good photos happen. Like
it
you
really was.
totally, totally. And one thing I wish I could tell brides like is like the dress is gonna get dirty. Not saying this to you because that's
Oh yeah,
unexpected to have it run over. But something it reminded me of was like the dress always gets dirty and it
it
always worries the
does.
bride, but like then you don't care by the end of the night. But the dress always
Yeah,
gets dirty. That's so
it
everybody
does.
experiences that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that and it ran over my veil very early on in the day. It was before we even got family photos. And so I was just like, whatever, guys. Like they asked me later, they said, oh, are you okay walking over that mulch? And I was like, sure. It was just not important. And I was like, this dress is $400 from David's Bridal. I was like, this is not getting worn again. I wasn't like shredding for the wedding or like diet bride either. I was just like, whatever, guys. It's fine. So yeah, it got dirty and I'm not wearing it again.
Well, in the marriage, this is the other thing I wish I could tell people is like that is such a beautiful example of prioritizing. Like you're getting married, like it's
Yeah,
the a marriage is a marriage. It's not a wed like a marriage. The wedding is not the marriage. Is the other thing I wish I
really
could tell
not.
people, right? And that I think that takes pressure off when you realize like, oh, the wedding is just it's just the wedding. Like the marriage is the marriage,
It's
and
just a day. It's just a day, people.
yeah, exactly. Like I think how you approach it is like exactly like the dream.
Thank you. Yeah, we thought that too. We were just like, ugh, I don't know. And I also feel for in almost yeah, I think it was exclusively all of our photographers sent us stuff and all of the messaging for
Mhm.
weddings is like at brides, which was a big surprise to me.
Yeah.
Um, there were obviously like the inclusive photographers who like
Mhm.
said like brides or grooms or like spouses and but a
Mhm.
lot of the materials we received were just directed at the bride. And like, I didn't know who a lot of our vendors were. My husband booked a lot of them. We divided and conquered stuff, which everybody was always shocked. Like, he would be on calls and they'd be like, oh, it's so nice for you to join. And I was like, he's leading the call. I don't know who you are. Um, and I wish more people did that too. I would like, I saw, watched friends get married and like, extent like relatives and they got so stressed about planning.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys,
Well, and weddings are like, you know, weddings, the way people approach their weddings these days, like people who are in their 20s and early 30s now approach it differently. And I think in a good way, where it is both people planning and where it
mm-hmm,
is like a more relaxed feeling of like, it's just a day. Like
yeah,
the exciting thing is we're getting married. I think that's a great shift because the stress of like, an old school way of doing it of being like everything has to be perfect, we have to get table photos, we have to get every
yeah,
last family combo, like it's a lot and it's too much pressure and it you finish the day with the same feeling of like it's something that happens with weddings and with marathons. You put so much work into this
yeah.
one event and then the event is done and you're like what oh it now what like there's like a
Mm-hmm.
depression that is very common to happen with weddings and marathons where you're like oh I'm done with this big thing and I feel like if we don't have put so much pressure on it it's way more fun.
Yeah, I we kept saying that all throughout the planning process. We were like, people were always like, "Oh, wait, you could add this on for this amount of money. You could add on this," and we were like, we have to wake up the next morning and we have to not be in debt. Like we have to like each other and we have to like feel comfortable with our finances. So, and we did. We woke up the next day. The only thing we were the week after was just exhausted because
Yeah.
it's like so many. We only had 50 people, and it was still like so many people to talk to, and like we were taking like 5 hour naps like every day the rest of the week.
Yeah, it's exhausting. You know what's so funny is like in the wedding industry, a small wedding is considered anything under 150,
We
but
were
50
called a micro.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Like it's still
We
a lot.
Some venues would not even take us. I love our venue. Our venue was perfect. We got married at a botanical garden, but we had
Huh.
looked at like traditional like venues in the neighborhood where like they have barns or they have
Hmm.
like traditional wedding venues. And some of them acted like they were just God's gift to the wedding industry. One of them was like, it's 12,000 just for the venue and it doesn't come with chairs.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
have any.
you don't get a bartender. And we were like,
Yeah.
what? And there were a lot of them too who we would say, hey, we're still, masking, we're COVID cautious. What happens if it rains? Like, can we rent a tent? Like, what are your options for like opening up these doors? And one of the venues was like, so what do we do if it rains? And we were like, we're asking you that. And he was like, and like,
That's
I
wild.
remember at the time,
Wild.
my now husband looks at me and he was just like do you want to leave phase, and we humored this person. We still laugh when we drive by it now, but some of these venues really act like they are like the most premier. I mean, this venue was charging more for circular plates unless you got square plates. It was like we were just like, this is not the vibe for us, guys.
It's too much. Like I charging for every single variation it feels over. I'm like, I get everybody's hurting right now, but I don't feel like the way to make up that missing cost is by being like, well, if you
Yeah,
switch to square plates, it's gonna cost you. Like,
that's the thing. Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, what do you mean I have to pay more for circular plates? That's the way plates usually come. I was like, that's their normal shape.
mhm.
What do you mean?
Wow. That's incredible. Like
Right?
wedding planning is such a time. Like it's such an interesting time. Like there's just so much that goes on in the stories. I don't know a single person who hasn't like planned a wedding and come out of it with like some random hilarious like just unbelievable story, big or small.
Yeah. It's hilarious too. Yeah. I mean, every family has their fair share of family drama, but like it was a perfect day. And I'll always remember the golf cart running over my veil because I was just like, it felt like in the office, like a Jim and Pam wedding moment. I was like,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I've been married before and in my first on my at my first wedding in 2012. Um oh my god,
You look like you're in your early 20s. You can't have had a first wedding. What do you mean first
definitely
wedding?
definitely had a first wedding. Thank you. When so in 2012, at the last minute, it was a small way. It was like 40, like 50 people, and at the last minute, we brought in a planner to like run the day, because I didn't know
Yeah.
enough about weddings at the time.
Yeah.
I would have done it differently if I had understood weddings,
Would you have
and
done like full service planning? We did like the
yeah,
month before and then day of coordination.
that's a good way. So I only did day of coordination, which was a
Yeah.
mistake. And there was a reason that she was available that late. She got so drunk at the wedding. She hit on the best man. She lost our cake toppers. And we caught her stealing wine. We were having our sunset photos, and she's loading the back of her car with all of these bottles of wine. And we were just like, it was so
What?
funny at the end of the day because what else can you do? Like, you got to laugh, but it was wild.
That's wild.
It
That's
was wild.
crazy. The
Yeah.
planner.
Mm-hmm. The
Sorry, I
plan.
don't think my mouth could have gotten any more
I know,
open.
right? And then she asked my mother for a review after the wedding. She asked my mother for like a testimonial. My mom was like, "No, I'm not going to say anything nice if you
Oh
ask me." It
my
was
gosh. Did
wild.
your parents help pay?
Yes, yes, they did, because which was very fortunate. Not for my second wedding though. So we went to
Mhm.
Vegas and we eloped, and that was a good
Fun.
time. Yeah, yeah, it was great. It
I
was
feel
awesome.
like everybody's my that was another thing that influenced our wedding planning was both of our sets of parents had been divorced and they are both sets of our parents are on their second marriage currently. And so we watched everybody's second wedding be like very chill.
So
My
chill.
husband's moms were in the backyard and then my mom and dad were on a beach with like 10 people. So that also influenced our chill vibe.
Right.
We were just like the church weddings aren't happening. We were like, apparently those don't work out clearly. So let's just be chill.
Well, yeah, I remember putting so much pressure on myself for the first one, and then this one, I was just like, I want to have fun. I want a pretty dress, and I don't want to worry about anything else. And I don't think I would do anything differently. I would might hire a makeup artist. I didn't do this time for this
Mm.
wedding. I was like, you know what? I finally want to learn how to do makeup. And so I put a ton of effort and a ton of
Mhm.
money into it. Though I do think hiring a makeup artist is the way to go and worth every penny. But I did my own makeup, which I felt good about, but I
Yeah.
did stress myself out about it. I did
Mm.
had shaky hands. I was so nervous. I didn't expect to be,
Oh.
but it was a really like perfect day, and it was so small and it was so intimate, and I don't know,
Oh.
it felt good.
Now I
And
want to see. Now I want to see pictures of the dress. I did the same thing. I did my own hair and makeup.
yeah, totally. Yeah, same. And then I cut my hair between, we had an outdoor dinner too. We just had like a handful of people that came. And so we had an outdoor dinner.
You cut?
I
Did you cut your hair in between?
I did. I cut my hair in between. I loved it. It was so fun because I had my dinner dress wasn't my wedding dress. It was this short, sparkly black dress that I was like that
Oh,
had
that's
the entire
fun.
and I was like, I need short hair for this. So I just chopped it off and it
I
went really
love
well.
that. Did you
But
have like a friend chop it, or were you chopping it?
no, I did it because in 2020 when I learned how to cut my own hair and I just kept cutting my hair after that. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. It really comes in clutch sometimes.
Did you ever cut your own bangs?
Yes, I've even done like a shag haircut. Like I've really experimented.
Oh.
Yeah, I have had fun with it. Like I guess I probably could feel okay going back to getting like going back to a salon and like I wear a
Mhm.
mask everywhere. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I like that I can do it when I want to do it.
Mhm.
And I actually really have fun learning it. Like it is a skill. It's actually really hard, even to just cut a blunt bob.
Yeah.
Really difficult, but I really enjoy it. So I kept doing it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yeah, I don't cut my own hair. My hairstylist, she was at a salon and then went off to kind of start her own. She has like a private studio now, and I've stuck with her because she is willing to mask. And it's also just the two of us in there. So, um, if that was not the case, I don't think I would be getting my hair cut as often.
You know what I did one time was I when I went to get my nails done for my wedding,
Hmm.
I wore a mask, but it was so small and it was so full because they're a fantastic nail salon. And I actually brought in an air filter that I plugged in next to the desk just as an extra layer of protection. And at first they were like, okay, whatever you want, like that's fine. Like they thought I
I
was
love that.
but then I tipped really big and it was never an issue again. Nobody ever laughed again because I wasn't the girl bringing an air filter, even though I kept bringing it, but I was the girl that just tipped really big.
Yeah,
That's
that's
really
the thing. I always tip, uh,
Mhm.
especially like artists like that. I think
Yeah.
that stuff is an art, and I'm always like a big tipper service workers, like 30% or above. Even if like I know there's like a thing about like turning around the screen and saying, "Oh, it's going to ask you a question." Like tipping culture's gotten out of hand. I still always tip. It's like even
Same.
if you're just like putting something in a bag for me, I still click the like 10 or 15 on the screen when they
Totally.
turn
Because
around.
I waited tables for a little bit and like just having done that even for a bit, like it changes your perspective on the
If
world.
you
And
work, yeah, if you work food service, I've worked a food service job and a retail job, and after you've touched someone's sweaty boob money after they've been at an amusement park for a day and been to like a pool, like
totally.
you're going to be a better tipper. Let me tell you.
Absolutely. I remember like I was in college when I was waitressing and I waited on a table that was obviously on a first date and the guy was
Mhm.
like kind of a dud. Like he was but he wanted to seem really cool. So he came off as like arrogant and kind of like annoying and she was so bored like I felt for her. And the guy they had this like big dinner and the guy tipped like 13 cents and I was like this sucks. Like I'm never
13
doing
cents?
it
Did he just like round up?
13 cents. And that was way back in like 2005, but even 13 cents in 2005 was
That's
not,
insulting. I don't care what the year is.
was
Was he
so
just
annoying.
rounding up to the nearest dollar?
Yeah, and yeah, basically. And
I
I
think
was
do you know what? Do you know what the problem there was? Do you know what the problem there was? I think math was the problem there.
math was a little difficult. Yeah, yeah.
Which tip for anybody listening on the pod, if you are at a restaurant,
Mhm.
in your head, you move the decimal over one place and multiply that by 2 or 3, like 20, 30. If you multiply by 2, that's 20%. If you multiply by 3, that's 30%. That's my
Yeah,
fun fact for the day.
yeah.
You do not need a calculator, just like do it roughly.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in like I don't ever talk about like I'm not like I have mixed feelings about the idea of manifestation, but I do
Mhm.
believe like when you put money into the world, when you pay people what they should be paid, when you support people with money or energy or whatever, I do believe putting that into the world, it one it will come back to
Yeah.
you, but two like it does. I do think that that's one way to just lift people up. Like tip extra.
Yeah.
If I have to be parked at a meter for 5 minutes, I'm feeding it for 2 hours so that every person that drives up after me for the next 2 hours has a
Mhm.
free space. Like that makes me really happy. Even in moments where I'm like even if I don't feel like I have the extra cash, I'm still gonna leave it because I'm just like I believe in it. I don't know. I'm like I'm really
It's never rich people saying that. People who are rich are very frugal. They're the ones who will be like in the cheese aisle at the store and they'll put back a $3 one and they'll grab the like 2.90
yeah
one.
yeah
I feel like it's growing up in a very like poor household. My parents were the best tippers.
okay that's
Like
perfect
my mom would give away like her last dollar even if we like just like for a service worker to make sure that we could tip.
yeah
Because just
exactly
like I feel like when you're poor, you those people are also more likely to have worked those service jobs. But
yeah.
rich
Well,
people are bad tippers.
I think like who I don't remember where I heard this, but somebody said something like, you know, if you won't give a dime out of a dollar, you won't give $100 out of a million, like something along those lines. And I remember thinking like, yeah, like if you want to set up to like be a generous person and like feel good about money and support other people with money, like that starts when you give a dime out of a dollar, like um, and then I always am like, I'm so grateful I can give this amount of money, even if
Yeah.
it's just a small tip. Like, I'm so grateful I can do that. Can't wait to do it more kind of thing. And that always feels good to me. That never not feels good.
Yeah. This podcast is just going to be called like, we're such good people. We mask, we tip well. We're just so nice.
Such good people.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, you know
The
what?
good people.
Okay, then I would like to offer up something I'm working on right now.
Okay.
I am I do personal artwork, and something I'm exploring is the idea of anger and rage. And because I'm like, oh, am I really such a good person? I don't know. I feel like there's
Quick pivot. You were like, things are going too well. Let's turn this
you're doing
around.
it too well. Like I do, as optimistic as I ever sound, like I do have a lot of like rage inside of me that I feel like I think all of us feel like a justified sort of sense of rage
Mhm.
about anything, but I do think that that exists, and I think it's actually a healthy thing to exist in some channels. So something I'm exploring in like my personal art right now is feminine rage and how people feel empowered or disempowered to show their anger. So that's something that I'm exploring that I think is interesting, like kind of shifting the idea of like what does anger look like? What do we think it should look like? And how does it? What's the reality of that? And you know what's good anger and what's destructive anger? I know I think there's an
Mhm.
interesting conversation there. So lest I seem too optimistic or too
Mhm.
I do feel like I'm also trying to tap into a lot of like anger and rage that I feel like is justified.
I love how you were like, I don't want people thinking I'm just a good person. I also make really incredible art, which makes me an even better person.
I don't know. I might do it really wrong. We'll see.
I love that. And so is this a series that you're photographing or you said is this like a 2D art, digital art?
So that's a good question. I am going to do photographing. I kind of want to make it video because I feel like what I want to show is people how they feel like they have to express their anger. Is that through calm? Is that through like a smile? And like, is that through speaking softly? And then how do you want to show your anger, right? Is that through screaming? Do you want to throw things? That kind of thing. And I want it to be
Mhm.
very close up. So I have talked to people about getting this into motion and getting into a studio and
Yeah.
shooting it. But the, I do think a video element would be fascinating. And I'd like it to be multimedia. I'd like to show it. I'd like it to hang in a gallery, and I think it will.
Yeah.
The way you feel emotion on video is so interesting versus how you see it on
Mhm.
camera. So I think even exploring that relationship and how it changes between mediums, I think is an interesting concept. So I think it'll
Do
be
you know?
photo
Yeah.
and video.
That's really cool. Do you know what I would love to see in that series?
What?
I would love to see you ask people of all ages.
Mhm.
Because if you ask a young girl to show anger, she'll probably show what you traditionally see as anger. But then if you ask somebody who's in their 20s and 30s, they'll probably show you what our
Yeah.
quiet anger has to look like in spaces. I would love to see that shift, like capturing that on video.
Yeah, exactly. You feel me. Like that's
I get
exactly.
the point of it. Yeah. There's like we have our like we have to make that face and we do a lot of polite smiles and
Yeah.
I think that's something that gets the component of age I'm thinking about is that like that gets kind of trained out of us at a
Yeah.
certain age to be expressing ourselves. We're too loud at a certain point. We're too much.
Yeah. And I think that there's so much, once we really harness that anger in a way that feels like true to us, like then I think there's a lot of change that can be made in the world. Like talking about
Yeah.
building a better world. I think a lot of that's going to come from anger, but we're told so often, particularly as women, that anger is unjustified or inappropriate or too loud or too and this or too that. And so I really want to like put in front of people's faces, what does anger
Mm-hmm.
look like? And why that to me is really interesting topic
Yeah.
right
No, exactly. And I mean, any extreme emotion, anything more than like a slight smile or frown.
now. Mhm.
We've seen in the media is reason enough to not elect a woman president or to not give somebody a job.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we've all had it. I mean, if you've ever been employed in corporate America or anywhere when you're not your own boss, you get that performance review and we're always to something.
exactly. I had a boss tell me one time when he was like asking, I was still an editor, and he was like asking if he should include a comma or not. Like he was basically
Mm-hmm.
saying, should I do an Oxford comma or not? And like our official style guide did not have an opinion on it. Like, and I might not be an Oxford comma person, but I don't really, I did at that point. We had had so many meaningless conversations, and he was asking me yet again something that did not have a lot of meaning and taking my time away from things that like I was on deadline
Yeah.
for. And I was like, it doesn't matter, you can do either one. Like I was about to like it was about to show, like it was coming up. I was like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's not the style guide.
Right, because at that point we had had a lot of slowdowns over things that didn't matter, so I was like, well, whichever. And he was like, well, you don't have to get emotional about it. And I was like, I'm emotional.
Ugh.
No, I don't have to get emotional about it, but my goodness, can I get back to my work please? Like it was just, yeah, that was interesting.
You know what you just say at that point? You just say, sorry, this is above my pay grade. If it's your boss, it's above my pay grade. Let him figure it out.
Pay grade. I also, there was another time when I had to tell that same boss, like, they had texted me on a weekend because again about a comma. I don't know what the deal was with commas, but he was like, we have a comma on the website that we shouldn't. And I came in Monday morning and I said, if there's a fact that's wrong, if there's a misspelling on the website,
Mhm.
yes, you can text me. I will fix it on a weekend. It's fine. But if it's not emergent, if it's not like an emergency,
A
don't.
comma?
I will not a comma. I was,
Like
and that's
it's,
the kind of thing when you work in edit. Well, maybe it used to be this way, but when you work in editing, that's the kind of granular thing that people really get into. And to me, at the end of the day, I'm like that's not what we're. That's we're not.
mhm.
There are different levels of editing, regardless, and there's a place for all of it. But being so focused on the granular stuff that nobody's
Yeah,
paying attention to the comments anyway. Like people do not, they speed past, people will speed past something being misspelled, right? It's okay.
exactly. That's something that we talk a lot about in advertising. I was an advertising art and copy
Mm-hmm.
major. We could kind of choose areas to specialize in. I specialized in both of the creative fields, just because I loved writing and also art. So I'm an art supervisor now, but I still have that like copy
Mm-hmm.
kind of bone in me. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing that we were taught was that like write how you speak. They were
Yeah.
like nobody talks like that. And I'm
Exactly.
an Oxford comma girly. I love an Oxford comma. It makes sense to me in my autistic brain because it's like a
Mm-hmm.
list and so it separates each
Totally.
item. But if I see something that doesn't have an Oxford comma in it, I don't even notice. I don't care. It's not
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not how people talk. I misuse
Yeah.
commas all the time. I have gotten it used to upset me for something to not be grammatically correct. I'm throwing commas and em dashes in wherever I want in my posts. Like if people who like tweet stuff, like if
Yeah.
I'm throwing out a quick thought, there's three commas in there that should be periods.
Totally. And you're so right. Like, write how you talk is so important.
Yeah.
I had a professor in college pull me aside one time after I turned a paper in, and he said, you're trying to sound smart in your writing, but you don't. And you need to stop writing as though like you're trying to sound smart because it comes off as trying and not as doing. And he wasn't saying figure out
Mhm.
how to write smart. He was saying like, why are you so worried about it? Just write the paper. Like write like you talk is what he was
People,
also.
yeah, people think that using um, words with more letters in it, so people think that using bigger words sometimes makes them sound smarter. And there's, oh my gosh, what's the phrase? Like pseudo intellectualism.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
there's this like you don't you sound more smart when you're just like you is sound smart. You sound more smart when you just break down a concept. That was something that my mom always explained to me that like
Mhm.
the smartest people can distill a concept down
Yeah.
very simply and communicate it. It's all about communication in any field. You have to be a good communicator. And she always like ingrained in us like it's not a 10-page paper that explains a concept. It's like two sentences.
That is so true. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it blows my mind that all throughout school we had to hit a word count, we had to hit a page limit in papers, and then you get to college and professors are like, oh, ugh, it's ugh, more than three sentences. Stop it! I don't want to read it.
You know, it's so funny. I remember in high school, people being like, in the real world, nobody's going to give you this chance or that chance. In the real world, this is going to be really hard. And then you get to college and like almost nobody cares about anything. But in college, they tell you
Yeah.
that like once you get into the workplace, then you're not going to get all this time or flexibility. But then you do get into the workplace
Yes,
and
you
actually
do.
there is time and flexibility, right? Like
Yeah.
life, I don't know, it's really weird the way we teach people the way things
Yeah.
work when the truth is like nothing works in any specific way. Like there just are no rules for
No.
any of it, and I don't think there ever were. Like it just it's such
Yeah.
a weird life is so weird
The
growing up.
same thing with calculators in math class. The reason that they don't let you have a calculator for some tests is for you to exercise a certain type of problem solving in your brain. But there were some teachers who were like, sometimes you're not going to have a calculator, guys. We always have one. It's not a big deal. But I did appreciate I had one great teacher who was like, a calculator is only as smart as the person using it. And I think the same can be said of like Google or any other research platform, which, by the way, some people think Google is a source.
That to me is
It's not.
it's that to me is something that like the something that I that people don't know is a lot of people don't know what a primary source is anymore, and it's that's another
Media
thing.
literacy.
I
Media literacy is
know.
seriously lacking. It's one of my pet
Yeah.
peeves too, and I'm sure as a former journalist.
Well, and like the thing about it is like it is available to all of us. Like fact
Yeah.
checking is available to all of us. Like you can like when it comes to like experts and industry leaders, like you actually can just call most of them and ask them a question. Like most of them are going to answer, which is wild.
Yeah.
But like you if you email a professor, like if you read an article and you're like, I'm like you want to know more, you can probably email a professor about it and they're going to email you back. Like it's wild that you
Mhm.
really can just go around fact checking things. That's available to everybody. Like it's not a high-minded thing. It's once you
Yeah.
understand like how reporting a story works, then you start to understand where sources really come from, what experts are. It's not as hard as it seems, but there
Yeah.
is a process to it. And I think that like, yeah, I think a lot of us don't know what a primary source is anymore. And that kind of worries me because that's not something that we only learned in journalism. Like I was a journalism major. We didn't only learn that in journalism school. We learned that in like elementary school.
That's very
Yeah.
basic essay writing. We were told not to use Wikipedia, like that you could use search engines, and then from there you had to find
Yeah. Yeah.
real sources.
Real.
Nobody has to do a citation list anymore. Or if they do, I mean, people are using AI to do it.
Yeah, I was talking. I put a video on TikTok where I was talking about content creators that basically read
Mhm.
headlines. That a lot of people don't know that those content creators are not actually reporting. They are reading headlines, which is also
Yes.
like anchoring the news. It's not even different from that, but like there's a difference between reading headlines and reporting the news. And a lot of people take those content creators as reporters and journalists, and they simply are
Oh
not. And
my
that
gosh.
worries me too because they are reading headlines. They're not saying where they're getting the headlines from. And
Yeah.
it's like we've gotten so far away from like where we get where like information is reliable, and that freaks me out a lot. So
Yeah. I was gonna say somebody immediately came to mind when you said that.
yeah.
You're on Thread. So I see his account recommended a lot. Aaron Parnas.
Yeah, that's who I was talking about. And people go hard for
Yep.
this. Like they really I had a lot of people in my comments saying like I don't care what his sources are, or I don't care where he's reading it from. I trust him. And I'm
That
like
is so scary.
like that's scary. Like for the most part, he has at large since he's just reading headlines at large, he hasn't done anything massively wrong, but or incorrect, I guess is a better way to put it. But that doesn't mean he's not subject to picking up a headline that's actually misinformation and repeating it. And millions
That's
of
the
people,
thing.
yeah, it
That's the thing
was,
that's scary. People have said like, "Oh, he puts the sources in his Substack," because if you add a link on social media, the algorithm doesn't want to push it as far. I
yeah,
think that's the issue. But I think that
yeah,
I never treat my any post that I make as like news as fact.
yeah.
I think we're all just shitheads on the internet, and that does not make us experts. I get on the soapbox all the time. I'm always like, you can't just put doctor or scholar or educator or something in your username or your handle and think that that gives you a
Yeah.
degree. I mean, if you do have a doctorate and you include that in your online persona, that's great. But there are a lot of people who I'm seeing who call themselves a nurse who are misrepresenting themselves online and saying there's something they're not, or thinking that a
Mhm.
doctorate in like physics gives them the right to comment on something like in a totally different field that they have not studied. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think people realize when you get a degree, you're getting it in a very specialized area. It
Right.
does not mean that you are the keeper of the universe.
Yeah, like I remind myself sometimes. I remind other people, but sometimes I even have to remind myself like anyone can get on the internet and say anything. Like there's
Yeah,
no checking before it like no there's no mechanism
yeah,
that checks before you post whether or not you were correct or even representing yourself correctly. Like
yeah.
and so when I did that video, I was basically saying like he like Aaron Parnas needs to add citations to whatever he's posting. Like he needs to
He
tell
does, even if it's just in the second comment of his post, even if he
yeah,
just like
yeah,
he
even in the
just goes,
comments.
it's like breaking. It's breaking and then it's some like
Yeah.
obviously the headline sounds wild because
Yeah.
it's just the headline and then there's no information. Did you see slight sidetrack, but did you see there was a headline that broke
Mhm.
about we're recording this during the week of the major flooding in Texas.
Oh
There
yeah.
was a false story that was spread about two girls being rescued, and a news article in Texas picked it up, and so people on threads were posting about it. It ended up, it was false. The story was not true.
Oh,
It's devastating.
yeah.
People were searching for hope. They were searching for hope.
Yeah.
Um, and when I see something like that, I always go, I was very grateful. I will reshare stuff like that sometimes without verifying, but I was like, I'm going to verify this. And I went online and I saw that it was posted by, it had been picked up by a newspaper in the area, but I didn't see it on any
Yeah.
national
Yeah.
news sources. And so I thought, I'm going to wait until this is picked up by a
Yeah.
bigger organization. Not that the local journalists, not to discredit them, but
Right.
I
Well,
was
so
like,
that's okay. That's such a good point. Sorry to interrupt, but you
no,
bring up
no, go ahead.
you're pinpointing something actually really important. A lot of those local newspapers right now that are only online and have never had like a print edition.
Mhm.
I noticed something recently. I was reading an article from one of them thinking it was from a specific city, but then when I went to look at the about page, it was real it wasn't. It was just a blog and it wasn't it was presenting itself as a like a local news organization, but
Mhm.
it actually was not. It was an
Oh,
opinion
wow.
that was just designed to look like news. And
Wow.
I just reading it, there were so many red flags, which is why I was like, I should just go check and see what this is. And so I think that like local news is something that's so important and really holds up a community in so many ways.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of like bad actors out there who are like representing themselves as local news and kind of really just blogging about whatever they feel like.
Yeah.
And that's I think a lot of people pick up stuff from that and then go, why isn't why like they'll say why isn't the mainstream media doing this? But that's because there's often like much more bigger fact checking processes that probably knocked a specific
Yeah.
story out of like contention for any space.
Exactly.
Not that legacy media is really hitting the nail on the head right now. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on by any means, but um Yeah, there's a lot going on right now, and
Yeah.
we are not equipped to parse it. And how could we be? Not everybody went to journalism school, like
Yeah.
we just aren't really equipped in a way that we kind of need to be.
But there's like an element of common sense.
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to say about seeing that source, and you just said it too, like my instincts were telling me like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to wait until a bigger source picks this up. And the only reason I said that was because local news is amazing, but the AP is not going to pick up like a spelling bee in a local town. Like
Yeah,
there's different levels of news. And I thought this Texas story is being picked up nationally. And
yeah,
I thought until I see a national source pick up an update on the situation,
yeah.
I'm going to wait on resharing this. But I liked posts. They were like, oh, these two girls have been saved. Like, that's great. I had read what happened. The editorial board at this local paper, and I forget the name, but they published
Mm-hmm.
not a retraction. They just published a note at the top of it that was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we apologize for posting this." It was a long-winded amendment, but basically, what had happened was somebody in the town had posted a Facebook video, and then other sources corroborated it.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I skimmed it, but it was very much like
Yeah.
that wasn't journalism to begin with. If it started like as a Facebook video,
Yeah. And it's there, and it's gotten to a point where like so this plays out in so many different ways. Like when they're so often like if you're on TikTok looking at your FYP, if somebody comes up on your FYP who look like is positioned as though they're on a podcast speaking to a podcast host, so maybe they're like
yeah,
this talking in this direction as though they're talking to somebody, very often that's just somebody with a microphone recording, and they're not on a podcast, but it makes them
mm-hmm.
look like they have more credibility and authority than they actually do. And so that's the kind of, and so then they'll start like talking about news in a way that seems
Yeah,
like they have that kind of authority too. Like it
yeah.
spreads out in so many directions, and then there's just so much going on in so many different ways. Like we as humans are not fully equipped for this, and it's that does kind of worry me. That's where I'm like, I don't know if I'm an optimist in this situation. This is kind of freaking me out.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously I'm not a parent. I am not here to tell anybody how to parent. I feel very lucky that I did not have access to social media and the internet until I had had media literacy courses in school.
Same. Oh my
And
god.
I think we're giving internet access to a lot of kids who have not had that
Mm-hmm.
kind of training
Yeah.
yet and that experience. And I think that's very dangerous. But we could do it now. Visuals are everything. Like you have a microphone there, I have one here.
Mhm.
We could
Right.
easily cut a clip during one of the more, very serious parts of the podcast, like when we were talking about COVID, and we could make it look like
Mm-hmm.
this was, you know, more journalistic than it is. I mean,
Right.
we're doing it like we're recording a conversation. That's all it is. But
Right.
people will put microphones up,
Mm-hmm.
and people have nice set design for some podcasts, and it makes it look like it's something that it's not. It's not. This is not news.
Exactly. Like I like if I could tell people, I would tell people if you see somebody talking into a microphone and it seems like they're talking to somebody who's off to the side, if you don't see that host, if you don't hear that host, then they're probably not on a podcast. They're probably pretending
Yeah.
to be on a podcast. And I see a ton of people look like they're in a studio breaking news with a scroll at the bot, like they put themselves in a box and then they put a scroll at the bottom.
Oh my god,
There's so much of that that's like fake too, and I'm just
it's
like,
fake.
it's wild. Like you can do anything in graphic
It's
design,
so
including
scary.
be an anchor apparently. But
That's the thing too. We do it not just with words on threads with like Aaron Parnas going breaking.
yeah, yeah,
Which like guys don't reshare that stuff. I mean like verify it. I try to verify offline.
yeah, that's the way to do
It
it.
like
He
that's
really,
something like
the nervous system hit that comes with hearing Aaron Parnas say like breaking news. Like I think we've all heard it so much that like our hearts leap a little
mhm,
bit and like we can't take it
yeah.
anymore. Like I think that like
I
our
don't follow him. I never did, and I have stuff coming up because that's how your feed works. You don't just have followers anymore coming up, but
yeah,
I have a stuff come up on my feed, and I like, oh my god.
yeah.
I think I have it muted now. I just could not
Mm-hmm.
take those many hits. I mean, the news cycle now in the digital space. Another problem with journalism is that the news cycle is like an hour.
It was not like this. It was not like this 10 years ago. It really
No,
it ramped up it really did ramp up in like 2016, and then 2020 hit. And the news every single day, I don't know if people remember this, but like it started in January with the wildfires in Australia. And then the news
Yep.
kind of kept piling in and more and more and more, and it never stopped. And so the news did not, I
Yeah,
don't know if we remember this, but the news did not it
I
used to
do.
be you had slow news days. It used to be like if, like, I remember going to the gym and they have whatever 24-hour news networks on at the gym. And I remember
Yeah.
some days going and thinking, like, God, it must be a slow news day if they're just replaying this stuff, like whatever
It'd
random.
be like, yeah, today we're showing penguins at the zoo. It must be a
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And there's no such thing as a slow news day anymore. It just doesn't happen. And that I'm actually really glad I got out of journalism when I did, because
Yeah.
it, women did not used to be treated like, well, female journalists, we always had issues, but the way female journalists are treated nowadays really scares me in a lot of ways. And so I'm glad that, like, I actually kind of left before the harassment of female journalists really got, like, the volume on that got turned up.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that, like, I left before the newsroom became so chaotic 24 hours a day. I mean, it's a lot. It's a
It's
lot.
constant. We have a constant we and even like even the media literacy courses that I had,
Mhm.
like high school, college, even a little in middle school, like we're not equipped to deal with a 24/7 news cycle. I mean, when we were, we were given like fake headlines. We'd have to pick like which is the real source out of this, which I always thought was fun. But like now we're having every single day. I mean, I'm sure there's a statistic
Mhm.
that I don't have, but there like must be like X a number of headlines that we see a day now.
Yeah.
Um, and I wonder what percentage of those are actually verified and true. But when we see when anybody can go on threads and say breaking and
Mhm.
put something down and it gets reshared X amount of times, a lot of people think this is another thing. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
This is another thing. People will see that something has been reshared X amount of times or something has X amount of likes,
Mhm.
and they think that that gives it more merit.
Yeah, that's so true. And the thing about is, like, if you put out something that's accidental, even accidental misinformation or disinformation, putting that out into the
Yeah.
world, and then you go, "Oh my God, that was incorrect," and you follow it up with a video that's like, "That was incorrect. Here's what really happened."
That one's not going to get reshared.
No one's gonna see it. Yeah, like the correction, it never gets as much traction as the original hit, and it's just it, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, we got to put the phones down. Like, I don't know what this
Yeah.
is doing for us, but I think we might need to put them down a little bit. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I just realized I just looked at the recording. We're over 2 hours now. You are officially my longest podcast.
If there are listeners that stuck around for over 2 hours, thank you. That was so generous of your time.
Oh my gosh, no. So I was gonna say we will wrap up, I promise. Shout out though, you mentioned listeners who are still listening. Hi to anybody still listening. I did get the best piece of feedback this week. I got like a review on Threads. Somebody said that they were enjoying listening to the episodes and they had like a 3 hour long train ride. And they said, they're so interesting, and I did not fall asleep during this trailer train ride. So, hot off the presses, guys, more episodes like these to keep you awake.
Oh, I love it. Oh,
Um, but oh my gosh. So I promise we'll wrap up. We really covered a lot though. I appreciate you coming on. This has been lovely.
thank you so much.
Paige Ray, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Um, if you guys need photo, video, or website design, even outside of LA, because I travel all the time for photo shoots, please, please, please visit me at paigeray.com, PAIGERAY.com. I would love to hear from you.
Oh, I guess that was amazing, and that sounded so rehearsed. You've definitely done that before. We are very good, very fun people. Everybody follow Paige Ray. And if you're listening this far and you have not fallen asleep on your train ride, on your commute, wherever you're listening, hit the freaking subscribe button. If you've been here, I know there are listeners who haven't subscribed. I'm terrible about self-promoting. At the end of every episode, I'm like, all right, bye. I'm gonna get better though. Guys, subscribe, hit the like button. What else can they do? Um, what else can they do, Paige Ray? Oh, they can comment.
Mhm.
Comment, what are your thoughts? Masking, journalism, breaking news. If you start, I was going to say, if you've listened this far, start your comment with breaking news and say what your thought is, and we will treat it as fact.
I love it. I love it.
Oh my gosh. But Pedro, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Thank you to everybody who's listened this far. I'm Carly Savell, and I'm a talking person, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.